I got thinking about AI content and specifically, how we can complain about how it's used to take existing content as training data and produce something new from it, remixing and iterating from human-made content that went before, and then churning out an impressive but derivative and unoriginal work. And it's become known as slop because it feels very false, inauthentic, and machine-engineered without any real creativity, innovation, soul, or human imagination behind it. It is soulless, it is empty. But in a sense, AI video and AI art is merely a more efficient and powerful tool to accomplish what Hollywood has been doing for years, far longer than AI has even existed, which is to produce bland, uninspiring, repetitive, and unoriginal content over and over, churning out a steady assembly line of sequels, reboots, prequels, and reimaginings of movies, TV shows, cartoons, and comic books that went before for decades. Even if you go back before the 2000s, before the rise of the superhero movie genre, before the endless supply of sequels and prequel movies, the churning out of slop existed in the industry, but in a different form. It was, the cheap sequel movies, relatively low budget and direct to video or direct to DVD, cheap sequels that were made purely to cash in on the success of a big movie. One of the key differences now is that Hollywood rarely produces anything cheaply anymore. You may have noticed. Movie budgets have just exploded, and the content mill has been transferred to streaming services where there's almost an insatiable appetite for more content. And as I've said before, content has been the key word for a long time, because content, to me, the word itself feels like stuff. It's just something that fills up a vessel. It's filler. In this case, a miniseries or a movie to fill a programming schedule on a streaming service. It's less art to be appreciated and more product to be mindlessly consumed and then discarded upon completion. Hollywood has become less a filmmaking industry and more a content output machine. High noise, low signal, quantity over quality. That seems to be the prioritization. And all too often, of late, the message has been shoehorned in, an overt and very much unwanted woke bias that has turned large swathes of the movie and TV show watching audience away. Now, this all got me thinking about the forthcoming Star Trek Starfleet Academy series, and as you know, I'm going to be talking a lot about this in the coming days and weeks because it's due to be released this week, actually on the 15th of January. So you can expect my review of the first episode coming later this week. Now, what's odd to me, and this has become kind of a common thing these days for some new shows, the show hasn't even been released yet. It hasn't even aired. Some reviewers and critics have seen screeners of the first few episodes, but it's not out yet for the general public, okay? And yet, Star Trek Starfleet Academy has already been renewed for a second season. They're shooting the second season already. They're shooting the second season of Star Trek Starfleet Academy, and the first season hasn't even come out yet. The studio and the streaming service that it's going to be on, they don't even know how good or how bad the ratings for the show are going to be. They don't know how many viewers they're going to get, how many people are going to want to watch this. They have no idea if it's going to be critically acclaimed and well received. They don't know if the fans are going to love it. They've committed to making 2 seasons of a show without first finding out if season 1 is going to be a hit. Now, it used to never be like that on television. A brand new show's first season was so important because that was the season that was going to make or break whether there would be any more, for that very reason. And yet, we're going to get 2 seasons of Star Trek Starfleet Academy. And one would assume, given the reaction to the trailers and the general decline in viewership for modern Star Trek anyway, that this show is going to crash and burn. I mean, is anyone seriously going to be surprised if this show is a failure? And I've said before, I think this is going to be a 2-season wonder and then get cancelled. I mean, it would have been a 1-season wonder, but they already renewed it for a 2nd season. Any objective analysis of the trailers for something like Star Wars The Acolyte would have been able to tell you much the same thing, that show was dead on arrival. All you had to do was conduct proper market research on the fan base and the kind of Star Wars that they really want versus the kind of Star Wars they've been getting and the kind of Star Wars that they've made very clear they don't want. And The Acolyte was everything the fandom did not want. And that should have been obvious to the studio before it was greenlit, but it most definitely should have been obvious from the trailer reactions, right? And it was cancelled after season 1 to the surprise of only the most out of touch. Yeah. Star Trek Starfleet Academy is an example of what I would describe as content churn and filler for a streaming service schedule. I mean, I find it very hard to believe that someone in authority thought the majority of the Trek fan base are going to love this show. You know, who thought this is a great idea? Let's greenlight this. Heck, let's do more than just greenlight 1 season, let's greenlight 2. Without even waiting to see if people like season 1. Given the show's massive budget, which is probably comparable to Star Trek Discovery's budget, how does it make any business sense? How does it make any financial sense to commit to 2 seasons without first assessing the success of the 1st season? I think this kind of decision-making speaks a lot to Hollywood's risk aversion to originality. I love Star Trek, at least the old shows, not the new stuff, but even I know the franchise is a bit long in the tooth at this stage. And that's true for a lot of big franchises, and we do need new ideas, new shows, new franchises. But Hollywood is very reliant on long-standing intellectual properties that are franchises. So much so that they would rather greenlight 2 seasons of a brand new show that they don't yet know if there's going to be much of an audience for, especially given that it's targeted at Gen Z, more specifically, rather than developing an entirely new show, a new concept, a totally brand new idea. So IP recognition is kind of a double-edged sword when you think about it. On one side, you have familiarity and a built-in audience. On the other side, you have what comes from that, which is a lack of originality from Hollywood and a lack of new ideas, because you're overly reliant on an existing universe instead of building a brand new one. So there you go, guys. Those are my thoughts on that one. Stay tuned for my review of Star Trek Starfleet Academy coming later this week. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell to be notified of future updates. Please share the video out there, hit that like button, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.